What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode. Dr. Mike Axler here, PhD in kinesiology and applied physiology, professor of exercise science, and 60 plus time marathoner and ultramarathoner. Let me ask you a question, as we always do on this channel. Why does fat loss feel harder than it should? And not weight loss specifically, because we'll differentiate between fat loss and weight loss, but fat loss specifically. Is there too much misinformation on the internet? Do you not know where to start in the way of weight training, cardio machines, step counting, different diet plans, supplements, GLP-1 agonists, right? Trying to not cut out fun foods, trying to have cheat days versus alternate day fasting or time restricted feeding. I feel like there's so much that we could dive into and discuss with regard for fat loss, and this drives $1 million and probably $1 billion industries. So in today's video, we are going to be talking about the nitty-gritty nutrition, metabolism, and how you can create sustainable, healthy, and efficient fat loss, not only for today, but for the rest of your lives in the healthiest and easiest way possible. Along the way, we will also be debunking some mainstream myths, such as hormones. We'll be talking about insulin, the thyroid hormones, ghrelin, leptin, and cortisol. We'll also be discussing starvation mode, which we discussed in the last video as well. So we'll just kind of like bring that up again. People with low carb obsessions and much more. So by the end of this video, you will hopefully understand how fat loss actually happens, how you can sustain it both efficiently and safely, and also, number 3, just to be able to sift through the social media and all the noise so that you, your friends, your family can be healthy and lose all the body fat that you need to, so you can set yourself up for a healthy life and not develop any cardiometabolic diseases. Okay? Sound good? Okay, awesome. Let's begin. So let's first talk about what fat loss really is. So fat loss, or more specifically, adipose tissue loss. Adipose tissue is just fat tissue that we hold on to right underneath the skin in that hypodermis layer. We do have fat which insulates our internal organs, which is actually brown healthy fat, but the white/yellowish adipose tissue is very much not good for us. We know that. We don't want to be fat. It's very unhealthy. What fat loss really is consistent energy deficits over time. And while that may seem obvious, we cannot outsmart thermodynamics, right? So it is a measure of calories in and calories out. If you are burning off 2,000 calories a day, but you're eating 2,500 calories a day, thermodynamic dictates that this margin right here, this 500 calorie margin, you will be putting on weight. But if we shift it such that you are burning off 2,500 calories a day, but you're only eating 2,000 calories a day, again, this margin of 500 calories a day, you will be losing weight. So again, you cannot outsmart thermodynamics. But again, with this topic, context really does matter. So there will be nuances. And the first nuance we need to discuss is that both the quality and the quantity of calories are going to matter the most. So calories, or kilocalories as they're more generally talked about, is going to be an actual just unit of energy, in that they aren't all created energy. So while the macronutrients, protein, carbs, and fats, all of them give us calories, all of them give us energy, we know that the different physiological systems which help propel us throughout the day, from sitting down to jogging, weightlifting, sprinting, sleeping at night, all of those different activities are going to work off of different energy systems. We have the phosphocreatine system, we have anaerobic glycolysis, we have aerobic glycolysis, oxidative phosphorylation. What you need to focus on is that all of these calories are not created equal, right? So we know that carbohydrates, as an example, are going to fuel intense exercise. But protein isn't really going to fuel intense exercise. It's going to be there to make sure that our muscles are continuing to regenerate and be healthy and restructure for later. So if you want to understand this and put this into context, before your next workout or your next run, as opposed to having some carbohydrate-containing food like a fruit, a vegetable, or whole grain, only have protein. So only have egg whites or only have lean chicken breast or only have a protein shake and keep going. You will always perform better with carbohydrates than with the protein. So again, context matters with these things. But again, sustainable fat loss specifically, as we had said, is going to come down to both the quality and the quantities of calories that you're having. And next on this, we need to make sure that we're in a caloric deficit in order to lose body fat, but not too big, such that we're losing muscle mass and we're having undue hormonal suppression, which we're going to talk a whole lot about in the next few minutes of this video. So the goal isn't necessarily to decrease the number on the scale, but your goal should be to increase or enhance your body composition. So lose body fat while maintaining or increasing your muscle mass. This not only looks great because you look athletic and you have, big strong muscles and very little body fat, but this enhancement in body composition is also going to decrease your risks of the various cardiometabolic diseases down the road. And that's why people die in this country and all over the world. They have high blood pressure, they're obese, they develop type 2 diabetes, they have heart attack, stroke, pulmonary embolism, dementia, Alzheimer's, right? All of that stems from systemic inflammation from having too much body fat. So your goal and your parents' goals and your kids' goals and your friends' goals should be not to decrease the number on the scale, but enhance your body composition. So let's go back to that topic of hormones that actually matter. So I think one of the common myths out there or things that people talk about is insulin. They don't really understand how insulin works, just like people don't understand how serotonin works or how dopamine works. Like now artists are coming out with songs called dopamine and they're like, dopamine's bad, don't go on Instagram. It's like, no, you don't understand how dopamine works. You don't understand how serotonin works. Same thing with insulin. And I'm going to sum this up for you today. So insulin does not block fat loss. It just temporarily halts lipolysis. Please let me explain. So insulin is a very necessary and anabolic hormone. We know that after we have a carbohydrate-containing meal, so basically anytime we eat, blood sugar or blood glucose is going to increase. And that's okay, that gives us energy. But insulin from the pancreas is going to decrease the blood sugar or blood glucose levels and then store the glucose as glycogen, which is like fuel for later in both the liver and the skeletal muscles. This is awesome. This is a very great homeostatic mechanism to have fuel for later so that we quite literally don't starve to death. And a lack of insulin, so your pancreas stops creating insulin, or your body stops responding to insulin, that's called insulin resistance or type 2 diabetes. People die of this all the time. So insulin is not the enemy. We very much need insulin. What the problem is our dependency on insulin. People are having these very unbalanced meals, unbalanced diets, and they're not exercising a lot. So we're asking more and more and more of the pancreas to secrete more and more and more insulin to keep driving down glucose, storing it as glycogen for later. People become insulin deficient or they stop responding to insulin and they become type 2 diabetics. So insulin's not the issue. What the issue is that there are other hormones that we're not so-called treating correctly in order to live a healthy life. So again, let me explain. We have hormones which play much larger roles in fat gain and loss, such as ghrelin and leptin, which is our hunger hormone ghrelin, and leptin, which is our satiety hormone, as well as our thyroid hormones, T3 and T4, as well as cortisol, which are stress hormones. So the issue, as I said, isn't insulin. The real issues are going to be stress, lack of sleep, unbalanced meals, and lack of exercise. So when we eat very high glycemic index carbohydrates, such as added sugars and refined carbohydrates, what ends up happening is that our hunger hormone ghrelin typically just keeps going up and up and up, because like potato chips and Coca-Cola are not very satiating. So what ends up happening is that when we have these tons and tons and tons of glucose spikes, you also have a glucose drop, or that hypoglycemic drop, the sugar drop, any other synonymous term you want to use. And your body becomes dependent on quick glucose fixes to keep putting yourself up back to baseline with your blood sugar. This is very bad. So ghrelin and leptin are all off. So you're not eating satiety enhancing foods, right? So fruits, veggies, and proteins. Further on this, with stress and lack of sleep, if you're someone who is chronically stressed, maybe you work night shifts, or you've had a tough upbringing, or like you have money issues, you know cortisol is going to be up, which is a stress hormone. Your thyroid hormones can be all wonky, T3 and T4, such that you could have hyperthyroidism or hypothyroidism. And all of these stress hormones are linked, which are very catabolic in nature. So you're not going to be able to maintain or add on muscle mass, and you'll continue to put on fat mass. So big picture here is that insulin's not the issue. It's a lot of other hormones at play. So let me now offer you a huge solution to all of these issues. Since we're being Debbie Downers right now, talking about the issues, now let's talk about the solutions. Muscle, and in general skeletal muscle, is going to be your fat loss insurance policy. Let me explain. So muscle can be thought of as your metabolic reserve, such that when you are currently losing body fat, you can maintain your metabolic rate because you have muscle mass. Muscle mass is very metabolically advantageous. It's very metabolically active. The more muscle mass you have, the more calories you can eat and more nutrient-dense foods you can eat, which is awesome. Number 2, on why muscle is your fat loss insurance policy, you can think of skeletal muscle as your glucose refrigerator. Meaning, as we had said before, insulin does a great job of saving glucose as glycogen for later in your skeletal muscles. So again, we don't want to starve. So we have it in our refrigerator, and then we can take that glucose out when we want to exercise and just stay awake throughout the day. And that's why skeletal muscle is so good. And the last reason on why muscle is your fat loss insurance policy is that muscle is very anti-inflammatory. We know that skeletal muscle offers us resiliency from getting sick, from various disease states, and poor quality of life, especially as we age. And losing muscle during a fat loss phase, which a lot of people do because they do too much cardiovascular exercise or they don't have high protein diets, is basically a guarantee for fat regain. It's going to happen such that people's BMR or their basal metabolic rate ends up dropping as they both decrease their body size and as they get in shape, so their heart rate drops. So we need to have muscle just in order to maintain our metabolic rate, in order to be healthy, and in order to enhance our body composition. And further on this, let's talk about something called starvation mode, which we had discussed in the last video before we offer some of the copy and paste solutions, or you can, skip ahead to that part of the video if you want to. So starvation mode is basically not losing fat correctly, if at all. So starvation mode, as we discussed in the last video, is a misunderstood metabolic adaptation. Again, we had said we cannot outsmart thermodynamics. People will swear that they're like, oh, I'm only taking in 2,000 calories, but I'm continually gaining weight. It doesn't work like that. Again, as we said, we cannot outsmart thermodynamics. Our metabolism is equal to anabolism, so what we're taking in or building up, and catabolism, what we're breaking down. So the issue people have, like these chronic dieters who are always trying these different weight loss pills and these supplements and these different diet fads, is that they have these decreased metabolic rates because they're not eating enough to support their physical activity, and therefore their metabolism is just lower. So if you have an athlete who might be eating 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 calories a day, they might also be burning off 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 calories a day. That's a very high metabolic rate. But these chronic dieters, what they want to do is move the absolute minimum and basically eat nothing at all. And on like the third day of the diet or fourth day of the diet or fifth day of the diet, they end up just eating this huge amount, or they justify it with a cheat meal, and they just end up like not getting anywhere. So starvation mode does not exist. You either need to be incredibly honest about what you're putting into your mouth and swallowing on down, and or just move more. So some solutions. If you are a chronic dieter who is trying to lose more body fat and trying to increase your muscle mass, so increasing body composition, number one, you could do something like reverse dieting, which is slowly increasing your calories. And this is not going to be for everyone, because you would really need to just be very careful about what you're eating, and you can barely eat out with friends or go over to someone's house for dinner because you need to know exactly what's in it, but that might work for you. Refeeding on like your high training days when you're going to have more carbohydrates to support your physical activity, as well as just maintaining training intensity. So if you are someone who thinks they're in like starvation mode, you're probably not. You're going to want to keep listening for the solution. All right, awesome. Now, how to actually lose fat that stays off. Number one, create a moderate caloric deficit, somewhere around 250 to 500 calories a day. And this is going to really add up. Remember, consistency is key. We want to take advantage of compound interest here. So what 250 to 500 calories a day looks like in terms of a caloric deficit, for some people, this could be from switching from soda and going to diet soda. And it could also mean adding in a 20-minute walk in the morning and a 20-minute walk in the evening, right? So something as simple as that over time really adds up. Number two, lift weights 2 to 4 times a week. Do full body training and focus on the compound movements. In past videos, I had discussed going to the gym and just lining up just going on all of the equipment, which is already lined up there. So doing, a leg press followed by a leg extension, followed by a leg curl. That's 3 leg exercises, followed by like a lat pull down, a row, a chest press, pec deck fly, bicep curls, tricep extension. At our gym that we go to, just down the line, you will be hitting every single muscle group. Just do that 2 to 4 times a week and you are golden. Remember, skeletal muscle is very metabolically active. It is going to help us continue to burn more calories in the form of adipose tissue, but add on more skeletal muscle mass, so enhancing our body composition and decreasing our incidences of cardiometabolic diseases. Third, eat a high protein diet. Research suggests having around 1.6 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight per day, or around 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So if you weigh 160 pounds, have 160 grams of protein alongside the resistance training. Voila, it is wonderful. Number 4 is to walk more, sleep well, and reduce stress. As much as I love running, and I love running marathons and ultramarathons and going with the crazy stuff on the trails, walking is a phenomenal way to not only just recover after hard sessions, wake you up in the morning, burn off a few more calories throughout the day, because walking for most people is so easy and so low impact, and it's not going to be that stressful. So I recently, as I talked about previously, I got a standing desk and a walking pad, and I set it to around 2.5 miles an hour. And I'll work 4 to 6 to 8 hours a day, depending on what day of the week it is and what else I have going on. And besides recording these videos, I promise myself to always be walking while I'm working. And if I'm working an 8-hour day and I'm walking at 2.5 miles an hour, you can do the math on how many miles I'm walking over the course of 8 hours while walking 2.5 miles an hour, and I barely notice it. And lastly, on how to actually lose fat that stays off, is just to be consistent and not extreme. Again, not every day is going to be perfect, but if you can start cutting out soda altogether and just going to diet soda, if you could drink more water, drink more milk, resistance train 1, 2, 3 days a week, do this again and again and again and show up, you're going to have really awesome results. Awesome. TLDR. Number one, focus on body composition, not the scale. The goal isn't to reduce the amount of pounds on the scale. It is to increase your body composition, so increasing skeletal muscle mass while decreasing the amount of body fat you have. And the reason why this is important is because this can reduce cardiometabolic disease risk now and for the future. Number two, hormones support fat loss, but don't try and override physics. Remember, we need insulin. It is important, but we shouldn't be spiking other stress hormones and making all of our hormonal milieu out of whack because we're not de-stressing, we're not sleeping, and we're not exercising. We want cortisol and our thyroid hormones and leptin and ghrelin to be in a nice sync as they should be when we relax, when we exercise, and we eat healthfully. Fat loss can be boring, but consistent habits start to build up and you start to get in these nice habits that are easier and easier and easier to do for the rest of your life. And lastly, I do want to thank you for tuning in to another episode. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like this, share with a friend, and subscribe to this show, as well as my podcast and my Instagram, where I'm constantly sending out long-form content as well as the bite-sized little candy snippets throughout the day, so you are as up-to-date as possible on all of the scientific data. And as always, it is about that time of day again when I'm going to go to the gym, do some of my resistance training, and you should be as well. So remember, consistency wins, and I'll catch you on the next episode.